Hello again, and it's now time to look at some of the topical stories on the front, inside, sometimes in the back pages of the papers to shape the national discourse. And I have with me in the studio the CEO of CTFM, Mr. Samuel Atamensa. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
And welcome to the show. But let's look at what the papers are saying. Started with BNFT and says the stock market to trade derivatives next year. And only 10% of salaries will go to ease-wage cards. The final newspaper says more trouble for economy. 40 FPSO spikes LPG crude oil imports, and investors angry over ADB IPO delay. Teacher unions boycott talks with government over proposed licenses. Daily Graphic says dark clouds over November 7 general elections. Dark clouds over November 7 for general elections. That's the biggest story here. Also, mobile phone users to enjoy domestic roaming. Free for all at KMA, and erratic power supply, not load shedding. Greatco explains. Ghanaian Times newspaper this morning says blows at KMA. Blows at KMA, and government urged to list ECG on stock exchange. That's it for the morning, right? So quickly, let me go to what we carried this morning. TV3. If you go to tv3network.com, you would see that as well. Yeah, Mr. Samuel Atamensa, let me just ask about the November 7. Now it's widely publicized that elections will be held on November 7. I mean, we're hoping the Parliament would pass it. It's yet to go through, I think, second and third. Yes, reading before it is laid before Parliament. For you, are you worried about it? I mean, the time, because some say, oh, well, we need the time. Or
No,
is the publicity not rather good? Isn't it supposed to rather aid it so people get it?
Yeah, I think it will be passed. It will be passed. I don't think we should be so apprehensive about a thing like that. It's a major determination of our democratic discourse, and so I don't think it's in anybody's interest to sacrifice it for any other thing. And so I think it's just much ado about nothing. It's going to happen because Parliament started yesterday, and they are on for another 2 or 3 months up until July ending or thereabouts. So I think it will be done. Okay.
With the date itself and the publicity given to the date, media, yes, whenever anything concerning elections comes up, we use the November 7. Is that kind of publicity, is it enough? What more needs to be done so that people, I'm thinking, in the hinterland gets it?
No, I think whenever we have, I mean, December 7 is not like Christmas date when people start their year thinking of December 7. In any case, it happens once in every 4 years. So it's not written on a rock. November 7th, once the activities, electioneering is heralded by the political activities. So once the political activities take off, we all start looking forward to. I mean, local assembly elections or district level elections have never been held on the same date every year, but people still participate. So whichever date that we choose, I think there's no problem. The publicity is okay. The major reference for our elections this year is November 7th, and I think most people know about that. And for as long as Parliament is ready to pass it, I don't think there will be any issues. Okay, all right then. And to another story, it says teacher unions boycott talks with government over proposed licenses. Your initial reaction to teachers being given license before they are employed? I heard it. I heard this story yesterday, and
yeah.
I was taken aback. I mean, yes, teaching is a serious profession.
Sure.
And so the theory of being licensed to teach is a laudable one. But I am challenged trying to figure out the practice of it, sure, how to implement a thing like that. In the first place, teachers, of which category are we talking about? I mean, for instance, if you say a doctor has to be licensed, what that means is that in order for you to practice medicine, at any level, whether you are in a public institution or a private institution, you have to be licensed. Is that the same that they are trying to call for teaching, such that without a license, you cannot even be a teacher in a private institution? Is that what they are saying? Then that's a tall order. And I just can't see the practicality of this.
Okay, I mean, if
and that's not to say it's not a good call, but whether we can really implement it.
Okay, I mean, looking at the issue that has come up, you have now teachers are being validated. You have, in quotes, whether ghost teachers or unqualified teachers or teachers with fake certificates and all of that. So maybe perhaps the license wouldn't necessarily, streamline it, make it a bit more tougher for illegal teachers to get on the system.
No, I'm not sure. I'm not so sure about that. We always have illegal doctors, don't we? We always hear of illegal doctors. I'm not so sure about that. I think and I keep making reference to that, the theory of licensing is going to make things more cumbersome for them, because even as it is now, we haven't been too successful in managing the teaching profession. And introducing licensing, are all of them going to write the same examinations, whether you choose the private route or the public route? How are they going? It's a bit ambiguous for me, and I don't know how, to be honest, they will succeed with a thing like this.
Okay.
Whether it will be done at the national level, it will be done at the district assembly level. You understand? And I actually don't know any country where teachers are licensed, properly so-called,
Because the training itself is some sort of licensing, because you have to be trained before you get to your certificates as a teacher.
Well, I would imagine that the training process gives one the mandate to go into the teaching. I felt bad when they took away the BEd course from gov't as a compulsory course, because I thought that it was a good way of creating a buffer of teachers in the system. Why wouldn't we give people a certain level of bursary or incentive for choosing to do BEd in gov't, in addition to University of Education in Winneba, so that at every point in time, those who have benefited from the bursary, for instance, will be required to, say, do 2 years of national service. So at every point in time, you have an extra, say, 15 to 20,000 graduates who fill in the spaces until some of them move on. Some of them will definitely stay. Something to hook them into the practice of teaching, rather than they go through and everybody goes. I mean, there are several people come to me looking for jobs, good grades, and you ask them, so why didn't you go into teaching? Their reason is that it's no more an attractive option. So have we made it attractive enough? And I have a feeling this thing is going to backfire.
Okay, but let me just pick, what the teachers themselves are saying, because the three main teacher unions have suspended discussions with government on the proposed teacher licensing regime scheduled for implementation this year. You have NAGWAS, that's the Association of Graduate Teachers, Coalition of Concerned Teachers, Ghana National Association of Teachers, because government has failed to incorporate their own concerns into the policy. So they are not necessarily against it. And then you go forward a bit on the story and says, it looks as if people are carrying their own personal agenda without taking into consideration the inputs that has been given by the teacher unions.
Bridget, you see, I don't even know where this idea is coming from. How many drivers don't you see on the streets who actually are licensed? And does it check anything? There are licensed drivers who misconduct themselves just like that. And I'm saying that if there are major issues with the teaching profession, we should look at it. I am not so sure that licensing per se is going to solve the problem, because we are removing the allowances for the trainees. the incentives for being posted into motivation for being posted into rural areas. There are questions about it. I mean, you go to a rural area, you see a headmaster, a head teacher, you weep. You know, so the motivation for being a teacher itself is waning. It's no more there.
Okay.
And so to put impediments on their way in that manner, I think it will backfire. Okay. That's all I think.
Then GES says this, that the public relations officer says this, that that revealed that a review process is ongoing to kickstart a new regime aimed at improving the quality of teachers in the pre-tertiary sector. Now, the licensing quote has come to make our profession more respectable. That's the line that I wanted us to touch on. Are teachers not respected the way they are? How would, I mean, yeah, making it more respectable sounds like also a good plan.
Well, I mean, you know, I mean, teachers have high regard in our society. You know, the only challenge is that teaching, especially in the public sector or the public schools, doesn't hold much of a promise of a good fortune. So you don't have people who make a deliberate decision that I'm going to school and then when I graduate, I want to go and teach in, say, a public school. You don't have people who make that deliberate decision. Most of the people you find there are people who hitherto had chosen another pathway and probably did not succeed, and then they end up going into teaching. And I say emphasis is on most of them. And there are those who use it as a stopgap measure to get into other areas. You understand? So I don't think that teachers are not regarded. They are regarded, but the prospects of being a teacher is in a very difficult situation. So I think licensing or no licensing, if you bring licensing and the fortunes of the teacher is not going to change, you've done nothing.
Okay. So I mean, you hit on a point that I totally agree with you on, is the issue about people who find themselves in the profession by virtue of the fact that maybe they wanted to do something else, but the teaching was sort of available. Is that not the availability of it is what makes it like, oh, you're a teacher? Oh, okay. Just what's the regard in that?
Well, I mean, okay, so it is a wide array of talents of people who make these choices. I mean, there are people who decided to go into teaching. But the point I'm making is that it's difficult to make that deliberate decision to go into public school teaching because of the prospects or the lack of it thereof. I mean, I, for instance, when I was in secondary school, when I was in sixth form, the person that taught me mathematics in sixth form is the same person that taught my son mathematics, and is the same person that is teaching my daughter mathematics in sixth form.
Okay.
So this is somebody who, at the time, had not made a deliberate effort to be a teacher, but went into it and found space there and decided to stay.
Okay.
You know, and most people know Sergey. Sergey is well known in Accra. You know, Labone Secondary School, Roman Reed School, you know. So there are people like that, very respected teachers.
Okay.
And there are those who, because of their economic circumstances, have not been able to get the best out of the profession.
Okay, but with teaching itself, right, if we're changing, we'll have to change with the times. Some would say that teachers for a very long time, earlier when you submitted, you talk about the trainee allowance that has been scrapped. I think President Mahama spoke and said that it's not been scrapped, they've just replaced it with a loan scheme. Isn't that a much more competitive and better, or you think that the trainee allowance...
No, the allowance has been scrapped. No, it's not. It's been, you see, allowance is allowance. A loan is a loan. I mean, they've
replaced it. It was
not a replacement. I mean, the allowance is no more, period.
Sure.
Now, we are offering a loan which you pay back. That's another facility. I mean, even when you had the allowance, students could still go for loans. So it's not either or. That's the point I'm making.
Okay.
So yes, we can't sustain the allowance, but I'm not questioning the government. I'm just saying that the lack of it is going to affect certain people, especially
because the loans cannot be accessed by all. It's open to all.
Well, the loans, yes, it will be open to all, but are they assured of the jobs that will? This is the question. There's an economic element in this. You know, elsewhere, people are paid to go into the military. Elsewhere, people are paid to go into the police service. People are paid to do nursing because of the social value that it brings to society. But if we always look at it as we giving them employment, that's where the challenge is. We are not just giving teachers employment, we are creating value for society by engaging them to teach. So when we create the equation such that it looks like the people on the other side are the ones who need us, so they want to be teachers, so they need employment from us. That's not it. We need to create value using people who are available to teach so that our society will be more educated. The other time I heard the police PRO say something which I totally disagreed with him.
The online recruitment?
Yeah, and how they sell the forms for 100 Ghana cedis.
Okay.
And he was happy talking about why when you go and buy BEC forms, they sell it. Why don't you? And I'm asking, do you understand what you are saying? Police PRO saying this on national radio? Because the police that you are recruiting, if you are thinking that they need a job, that's why, and you are doing them a favor, you are so wrong. You're so wrong. Training police is creating value for society, to the benefit of society. That's why elsewhere, look, in the UK and in the US, if you dare give an indication that you want to be a police, you better put your phone off. They will call you, they will come and visit you. You understand? They will make sure that they create a convenient path for you because of the value that you bring. So I'm just saying that let's start looking at all these services as value creation for society and not just giving some people employment.
But it is a form of employment.
No. No.
Because, I mean, people need it.
It is employment, which is okay. But there's a greater good to the
for
engagement.
being in that service.
You understand? I mean, if somebody chooses, for instance, to be a businessman, why should I pay the person to be a businessman? You know, but you see, the reason, for instance, pre-mixed fuel we subsidize is the value that it brings to agriculture.
Sure.
Not because we just want to give them jobs, but because there's an extended value. That's the point I'm making. Let's stop seeing it as giving them employment and start seeing the value that it brings. Maybe if we start looking at the value that teaching brings to our society, then we can start seeing the good in it. But just, we are employing 10,000 teachers and we are employing, that's where the challenge is.
But I mean, how do we go away from how do we then go away from this that you're talking? Because it says employing 10,000 teachers because there's a huge unemployment deficit. There's a huge space that people want employment. So if somebody employs 10,000, they will shout about it.
No, I'm not saying don't shout about it. I'm just saying that if you employ, which is fine, but our approach to it should not be limited to providing employment, and so these people need employment, so let's just sell them the form so that they will get employment. I'm just saying that beyond you engaging them, there's a certain social value that is required by the nation.
Okay. All right.
So we should look at it from that angle as well.
Okay. So
that, for instance, giving allowances to teacher trainees for me is so much value. By taking it off, those who are not able to have access to it, eventually is going to come against the country. I mean, it's going to...
But when it gets to a point where the country cannot sustain it?
Well, it's a decision. I'm just saying that we are still left with options.
Okay.
If the country cannot sustain it, we should learn to prioritize. There are other things we cannot sustain, but we stretch ourselves to do. I mean, we pay money to take people out to go and play football, don't we? Yeah.
Those happens once, every 4 years, 2 years.
Yeah, but it's still taken from our meager, resources. I'm only saying that teaching, for me, is a very critical good that society requires. That we should do everything to motivate people to make the choice of teaching. Okay,
all right. And we're just going to go in that angle. We'll talk about KMA and blows at KMA, or fighting breaks out at KMA. But a story also captured by the BNFT talks about, only 10% of salaries will go to each cards. Now, the Chief Executive Officer of the Ghana Interbank Settlement Systems, GIBS, Archie Hesse, has said that only 1/10 of workers' salaries will be paid onto the e-switch card in a statement that is intended to play down the agitation on the public sector workers' front. And according to Mr. Hesse, agreements reached with the Controller and Accountants General's Department and Public Sector Workers Group is for 10% of workers' net salaries to be transferred onto the e-switch as part of effort to boost usage and also help advance the Bank of Ghana's cashless economy. Is it a good ground to start from? The workers. Personally, I mean, I didn't know this, but when you go to some supermarket, they have the POS, point of sale. So if you have a card, your regular ATM, you put in there. What is the fear here? What do you think is a fear here?
I'm also wondering.
Good. Our minds on same front. I was just paying, through that system.
No, I'm also wondering, why. The thing is, I don't know all the details, but I am wondering why anybody.
Kasisi, you can join us. Yes, my second guest just walked in, so please come.
I'm wondering why anybody would reject an offer to be paid in that manner. I'm wondering. So that's why I started by saying that I don't know the full details, but if what I hear is anything to go by, then a cash. I mean, all they do is to credit your card with a certain amount of money. Like how you do your mobile money or whatever, and then you have a notification that says that so and so amount has been paid on your card, and then you start using it. And I think that it's a necessity that we need to start educating people. I mean, people are so suspicious at just anything. That's what I think the problem is. They are just plain suspicious. What again? My personal conviction is that if the government succeeds at using the e-switch cards to pay public sector salaries, I am quite sure that the ghost names in the payroll is going to be minimized.
Okay.
It's going to be minimized. But having said that, I also keep wondering why is it the Ghana, is it GIBS, right? The organization that is doing. I keep wondering why they have not also offered to sell this service to private institutions, if you know what I mean. I mean, so come to TV3, maybe TV3 will subscribe to it, because what you want to do is to encourage the usage. So TV3 starts, City FM continues, Joy FM continues, Peace FM continues. Before you see, you've covered about 20% of the working populace.
Okay.
Now, when people see, confidence will grow. But I think they are so bent on public sector.
So we should try other people.
Yeah, I think so.
Good morning to you, Mr. Kasisi. I know sometimes you come and wait for us like an hour and a half. Yeah. And today you're late, so you're forgiven for today.
Thank you so much.
You're forgiven. I mean, the two of you are always on time. This is the first time that I know this has happened, and but welcome to the show. we're talking about, having salaries of 10% of workers' salaries, going through e-switch and the concern. What do you think that is the general fear of workers?
First of all, I am not one who shares a lot of optimism when it comes to technology issues.
Oh, okay.
A case in point is the SS students, the allocation, the computerization of the selection of schools.
Yes.
It's well over 15 years now since it was begun, and there has never been a year when there hasn't been a problem.
Sure.
So Ghanaians are quite justifiably skeptical about ICT and how it's supposed to improve the efficiency of issues. The second thing is that we are also beginning to get reportage of hackings here, hackings there. So people do not feel very comfortable. I don't know if you've been to an ATM where you find a senior citizen actually standing by and asking anybody nearby, please help me, I want to remove some money. We are not yet there. A majority of people are not yet there, and those who are there, unfortunately, seem to be taking advantage of the system. So while e-switch has been in the system for a while, there was a time when you open a bank account, it was mandatory to take it. They have missed their window. They missed their window, and now MTN money, Vodafone money, Airtel money has taken that window.
Sure.
Agreeably, people's salaries cannot be paid through those. But the easy fix transaction has been taken over by the telcos. As far as I'm concerned, I think that we should do a pilot of this project. We should see how efficient it is. My friend here thinks that it will reduce the ghost names. Believe me, I believe that if at all, it's most likely even going to increase it. Because, I mean, in the earlier case, you have to actually present yourself in the bank. A human being has to present themselves in the bank and pretend to be Mr. So and so. Okay. This time around, all somebody needs to do is get in there and move the money into their personal account or an account that is created for the purposes of this fraud. Okay. So I may sound like a dinosaur, but I think that we need to be very, very careful. Salaries are particularly dear to the worker. So if we want to do this, then we want to do a trial. My sister, we have not even been able to register ourselves as Ghanaians. National Health Identification, we have not been able to do it. Sure. Every time we go for registration and re-registration, there is some glitch here, glitch there. Tell me where in the Ghanaian experience ICT has seemed to come and improve without question what is happening. So my worry, even sometimes our doomsday is attributed to ICT glitches. Okay. I think there's so many platforms on the basis on which the e-switch must perform. You go to a bank and they tell you the network is down.
The gov't has actually, what's it called? Yes. They've denied that. They said it's not true that if the network is there, it doesn't affect the e-switch.
Oh, who is going to come around confessing to potential fallibilities? Okay. The truth of the matter is anything that is on ICT is by automatic nature, dependent upon electricity. Okay. So even if their system is foolproof, our electricity situation is not foolproof. Okay. So that is the problem I have. Recently, we heard in the reportage a whole lot of young people went to buy forms for the online registration of the police, but the network was down. Perpetually, GCB network is down. I mean, just give an example. So I think that we should not hurry. I think we are outdoing our own self, trying to be there when we have not yet arrived. Okay. Sometimes I just find it ridiculous that we are thinking that we are in the 21st century, and when you go outside, our gutters are choked and so forth and so on.
Mr. I want you to comment a bit on it, that, systems failing.
I mean, look, engineering systems, I agree with him, have they have all the propensity to record some failures because of the nature of the structure of it. Heavy duty engineering management is different from chip-based engineering. And what I refer to as chip-based will be what we see on our cards and now our phones and things like that. I am an IT person by training. And so if I say that the implementation of the e-switch will reduce ghost names and redundancies in the government payroll, I know that for a fact. I'm not just suggesting. I know that for a fact. Because see, the e-switch system, the system, and I'm not talking about one machine, the whole system has a component that verifies identities. And that system is the same system that the National Health Insurance, for instance, will be using to verify identity, the same system that the EC, for instance, will be using. And it is the same system that is used in places like South Africa, in the UK, everywhere. So what I'm saying is that it may not eradicate it completely because of people's deliberate actions to bypass the system. So I agree with you to an extent. But I'm saying that the use of it will eliminate to a large extent these kinds of things. Now, you said that they can start on a pilot basis. Again, the point I made is that if you're having difficulty using the public sector, why don't you start somewhere by, say, engaging private institutions, you know, who have confidence in this? I mean, if my company, for instance, is giving the option, I'll pay salaries through the electronic system because it's easier, it's straightforward, and you have an electronic record of it. I mean, I've had a situation that, you know, salaries have been sent to the bank where the bank has made a mistake of posting other people's salaries, you know, in that way. So Bridget's salary goes to Kofi, that kind of thing. It's happened right here in Ghana. So I agree with you that we are still exposed potentially to some errors. But it's an error that I would choose over what we have now.
Okay, all right. Then we'll move on to just a quick comment. Yes, quick comment.
You see, I'm particularly happy that I read him right. This is an IT savvy, if not a professional. And the last I remembered, because I almost finished school before I actually contacted a computer. They say garbage in, garbage out. So what you put into the ICT system is what comes out.
Yeah.
And I don't want us to have a song and dance about the propriety of the Ghanaian in terms of accountability. So essentially, you are telling me that the system is foolproof, which is fine. Who inputs it is the issue.
Yeah.
You're talking of South Africa, UK, talk of where, talk of Singapore. What is important is immediately the person decides to corrupt it. When I say corrupt it, use it for different purposes, you cannot stop that. The system in itself cannot stop.
But it doesn't mean we should not
No. I'm not.
Yeah.
That is not what I'm suggesting. All I'm saying is that Ghanaians have been bitten once with the computer allocation of students.
So what should we do?
So take your time. Let those small, manageable... You see, private businesses are not only small, but the bosses of private businesses, they count the pennies because it's their money. When you take it to the private sector, it's the elephant that died.
Public sector?
I mean, when I talk about government sector, it's the elephant that died. Everybody is cutting their piece of meat away. But if they bring it to TV3, TV3 knows exactly the number of staff that they have. I mean, you cannot possibly come and inflate the number of staff of TV3.
Sure.
So when you start on a pilot basis, maybe you want to go to the universities, I don't know how they pay themselves, then it's fine. But for the public sector, we have a major problem.
I think we're saying the same.
No, but like you realize, I arrived a bit late, so I may just be reiterating what you're saying. I don't think this is a clash of sorts. I just wanted to particularly describe the fear the phobia that we have for ICT in this country.
All right then, thank you. We'll have to move on now. And Ghanaian Times newspaper has a story. It says fighting breaks out at KMA, and the electing of the presiding member of the Kumasi Metropolitan Assembly yesterday degenerated into confusion as a fight broke out between the assembly members. Now, after 5 rounds of voting ended in a stalemate, the assembly members abandoned the process of voting. That was because the 2 contestants, Nana Kofi Senya, perceived to be the choice of the New Patriotic Party, and Nana Eduhine, reportedly the National Democratic Congress favorites, failed to secure the 2/3 majority vote required by law. Now, I just want to pause here and just pick your thoughts on why it has become keenly contested to the point that they don't have to fight over this.
Bridget, this is a clear betrayal of our hypocrisy. You see, why do I say hypocrisy? Apparently, people are not supposed to run according to party lines, but the reportage is quite honest that the National Democratic Congress favorite, or for that matter, if the person is not so, then that means it's the opposition preferred. The other thing that is betrayed here is also that these gentlemen and ladies come touting service. Oh, we are going to serve the people, we love the people, etc. I'm surprised that they have to go to fisticuffs to achieve that. My problem is that we have sung the decentralization song for so long that when we were arriving in the university in the early 90s, it was the nouveau topic, and Dr. Ayi, I think now Professor Ayi and co were the pioneers, and they were trying to tell us what decentralization was. But most importantly, we have soured the whole experience of decentralization by infesting it with party politics. And so an assembly is somewhere in the nook of this country, then government nominates somebody either openly or inadvertently,
sure,
and prefers a certain person. You see, what that means is that you are not giving the people a real choice on the ground. Here, the system, and when I say government here, don't misconstrue it to mean NDC government, because when it was MPP, it happened. And whoever is going to be next time is still going to happen. You are telling the people that have a choice, choose a presiding member. But you have a preferred candidate. You are lobbying behind the scenes. Sometimes it's not based on principle. It's just based upon the fact that people want to have a semblance of a choice. If these people are one assembly, let them operate. Let them choose from within themselves. Let there be some legitimacy when a person emerges. Because as we speak, if the person gets a majority of 1, I don't know the conditions, and then becomes a presiding member, what happens to the 49% of the people? They are going to spend the entire period of the life of the assembly trying to frustrate the efforts of the assembly. So we have to look at this thing thoroughly. This Patreon clientelism, where we want to have people at every level of the political spectrum, and for that matter, we go through ways and means. We have to begin to look at this thing properly. It's surprising. Yesterday was a full fight day. In the South African Parliament, there was another issue. But that is so far away. But here, KMA is not the only place, and everybody's guess is as good as mine as to why KMA is such a topical area. Because there are factions in the KMA, just like there are factions everywhere else. So it brings to bear that argument, and something has to be done about it. Are we going to decentralize to the point where district chief executives and metropolitan chief executives and the so-called mayors are elected? Or are we going to continue to operate this patron client system where you sit here and nominate a DCE, sit here and nominate a presiding member, and then go ahead and nominate so many government appointees? It's ridiculous.
All right. Mr. Samata, same for you, about how we got to this point of having to fight because the preferred candidates, whether on both sides, were not getting 2/3 majority, and it incensed assembly members.
Well, I mean, Kumasi is a hot point when it comes to these things. So, but I think that they have taken it a notch too far, if you ask me. I heard Francis Dodovi yesterday on CTFM.
Okay.
Explaining his side of the story. You know, like my brother said, it's just turf fighting, you know. Everybody trying to protect their turf. And again, it's to strengthen your potential for decision making within the assembly. So that, because it always comes to a vote. And the moment the president says that I have a certain percentage that is reserved for me to appoint, the moment the president says that, or the constitution says that, it gives us a situation of me versus them. That is the problem. For me, that is the problem. You know, this thing has been blown to this level, but only 2 months ago, a similar thing occurred in the AMA. Yeah. AMA, blows, proper blows, and I'm talking about proper ones, not the Kumasi ones. Kumasi, they can insult, but Accra, they can beat.
This one, I mean, they were fighting.
Yes,
they were fighting.
Yeah, so a similar one happened. But again, it boils down to suspicion. Who is this person? He belongs to the other side. This person belongs to the other side. But what is the assembly about? The assembly is about the people. He said that they come with the promise of working for people, but it turns out all the time that they work for themselves. And that is why they will fight tooth and nail to preserve what they want. And so I don't know how we are going to solve a situation like that. They should argue, they should disagree, they should do whatever. But as for fighting, it shouldn't be one of them. Okay.
But I mean, so then it means that they, like Kasishi said, they are not really fighting or there to represent the members.
No, how do you represent me by fighting? I mean,
I think the fact that they fight over the position is because at the end of the day, whoever wins,
they fight to protect their territories, because they are there on behalf of other people. They are there on somebody's behalf. I mean, if you appoint me to be there on your behalf, I will fight to make sure that I take decisions that will favor you. I take decisions that represent your policies. And that is what we have. We see this in Japan. We see this, as I said, the day before yesterday in South Africa, yes. Parliamentarians fighting blows. You understand? So it's happening everywhere. But that by itself will not solve anybody's problem.
Yeah.
One day they will start fighting and somebody will die in the process, and then, as we say,
all right then, thank you very much. Also, another story carried by the Finder newspaper says that more trouble for economy, and says that the cut in crude oil production output from the Jubilee field by over 50% has serious ramifications for the economy. This unexpected development occasioned by a faulty turret bearing on the floating FPSO Kwame Nkrumah will result in a massive drop in expected crude oil revenue. Now, as a result, there will also be the need to increase the imports of crude oil, yada yada yada. I know whenever anybody, you hear about more trouble for the economy, you worry because the economy is not in great shape. And this is a projection based on they're doing a projection based on the disadvantages. You're looking at FPSO being down and its impact. It means that the government will have to spend more money to import more crude and all of that. Are you also on the edge?
Well, but that's what the government, that's what it is. It's not somebody second guessing the government. That's what it is.
Yes, yes.
There's trouble for the FPSO, the turret issue that they mentioned. I think one of the options that we have is to actually carry the whole FPSO back to where they brought it from to get it fixed. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
In fact, we are likely to get to that option where we have to carry the whole thing, the whole ship back to wherever they brought it, Singapore, get it fixed before it comes back. And this one will not happen in 1 month. on the other hand, they can fix it so that they reduce their capacity, which is, I think, the option that they are looking at. But if you reduce the capacity, what it means is that you have to spend more money to buy from elsewhere. I think whichever way we choose, it exposes the economy.
Okay. For some, the impacts, analysts say, especially on our forex, our city is volatile. I think that word has been used, very unstable city, but we've had sort of a sustained city for some time now. For somebody like you, a consumer, what concerns you the most, or what would you want to see happen?
Bridget, I'm very happy that you have properly
As a
pigeonholed.
Yes.
You see, you realize I was marveled at my co-panelist.
Yeah.
He actually understands these things. I don't.
Well, not too well.
Well,
I understand it from the point of a media person.
Fine.
Yeah.
You see, for me, when they start talking about FPSO and production down and up, I'm telling you, nobody has bothered to tell Ghanaians exactly how much oil is where, how much is brought out, how much it amounts to, where it goes, how we use it.
Sure.
So please, don't bother me with this rigmarole. When it comes to Ghana's oil policy, I think there is a cabal that is milking this country.
Okay.
And if it is not true, let somebody come out and tell me otherwise. And I consider myself sufficiently literate. And I'm completely confused when it comes to Ghana's oil, vis-a-vis our oil fields, vis-a-vis gas production, electricity production, and the interplay with
Sure.
foreign exchange, etc.
Okay.
I always say that if something does not reflect on my daily expenditure,
Sure.
then it's extraneous to my economy. Whether the city is up or not,
Down. Yeah.
my salary has not increased. Whether the city is up or not, fuel, you are told on Sunday that by Monday morning there will be a fuel increase. Whether the city is up or not, everything that we buy is definitely going up. And then the value of your money obviously deteriorates on a daily basis. So for me, I sometimes just switch off when I hear these economists talking about the GDP and macroeconomic stability and single-digit inflation, etc., etc. I have decided that I'm not going to even bother myself to understand. The day that I will be able to get to a platform and say that Ghana is doing well is actually when people get paid salaries that allow them to live within the circumstances in which they find themselves. For me, that is all that matters. Majority of workers spend at least 40 to 50% of their salaries trying to get to and from work. Nobody can pay school fees easily. No wonder there are now even insurance companies that have come out with a new scheme where they actually take over the payment of your child's school fees and you pay it in installments. All sorts of ridiculous schemes. This comment I'm making has nothing to do with any particular political party.
Yeah.
Let us make it clear. The price of contomere in the market is not according to your political party. So, Bridget, I'm sorry I'm going to disappoint you. I will not sound particularly pedantic about this discussions.
You're not
It's
pedantic
just for
about
me.
it. I mean, you're just talking about what the ordinary person will talk about that scene. How does this, in all of that, how does that affect me? Yeah. How does that make my life better?
Exactly.
How does that, take off the pressure?
And we like on other platforms, I keep saying that this is election year, and what I'm not hearing most, what I am not hearing most is actually real policies that people are going to bring. It's not as if we even believe the policies anyway, but let them indulge us with some real policies. The last time around, I remember there was some vociferous announcement of free SHS education.
You mean the last election?
Yeah, the last election. There were real things, real promises on the ground. This time around is this person sneezes and this person says no. This person says that I've done this. This person says it's a Photoshop. Okay. We have to take Ghanaians seriously. We have to begin to, you see, when we talk of corruption, I'm sorry I have to bring this here. I have to move. Yeah. Just wrap up. If people do not have allowances and salaries that are good enough for them to live, the simple and the first law of life, which is self-preservation, would push them to be corrupt, to get their livelihoods by any means possible.
All right, thank you. Mr. Zamala, so this morning we rant, a segment on the show, Daily Rant, and we talked about whether people vote on electorates are influenced by the political manifestos, and the political parties are not yet out with it. What we are picking up as media is that nobody wants to come out first with their policy because somebody will either take, steal, remodel, review, all of that. Should we demand it? Is that really what we should be worrying ourselves with?
Well, I mean, political manifestos in this part of the world, really, I'm sure that if they really influence the electioneering decision making, then it will be a single percentage figure, maybe not more than 5%. People are, first of all, attracted by their ethnic associations, secondly by their social associations, their party membership associations, and things like that are more significant in the decision-making process. Manifesto really, in my experience as a media person covering elections, is just one of those things that they put out there so like that one formality. Day we can refer to it someday, But whether it accounts for the choices, the decision making, I doubt very much whether it's really.
And is that a danger? Is that a bad thing? Yes, we are at a point where in this 2016 where people will vote on where they come from. We've got to be truthful to ourselves.
No, I mean, when my reference to the word manifesto, I'm actually talking about that document called manifesto.
Absolutely, yes.
But the elements of the manifesto come in the form of promises that politicians make. And I think politicians are able to get away with some of these elements within their manifestos, which we call promises. So you go to a community and you promise them pipe-borne water, you promise them street lights, and then you actually go ahead and provide the street lights with solar. And yesterday I was telling a friend that Ghana is the first country where I see solar-powered street lights that go off at night. The street lights are there, but at night they go off. Meanwhile, they are solar-powered. So you wonder, what did we do? So as for the promise, Chaka, the promise is there. They will promise you. I won't read a manifesto.
Sure.
I'm a media person. I consider myself educated, but I will not read anybody's manifesto.
My other colleagues, share of you. This one we're discussing. We're all on the same page. That look, we're not influenced.
When I hear manifestos,
yes, same thing.
I hear of a wedding.
A wedding?
Yes, the wedding where a young man goes to take a loan, rents a car, and rents a gown for his wife, and goes to rent a tuxedo.
Yes.
So the wedding day is wonderful. If the lady thinks that what happens on the wedding day is going to continue, then the lady is stupid.
Oh.
Because the car is rented, the suit is rented, your dress is rented, everything is rented.
The place you're hosting
In fact,
your wedding is
as for that is forgivable. You can't, most people don't have big houses to hold a reception. That is what a manifesto is for us. It's a beautiful document with 3D diagrams, etc., supposed to hoodwink the electorate.
Sure.
But you asked a very pertinent question. Should we be asking for it?
Sure.
Again, an interesting image comes in. You are going to woo a girl. Are you expecting the girl to tell you, Charlie, give me the raps? No. You should go there and tell the girl what you have to do. But if you know that the girl is taken for granted, you just arrive there and present yourself. Ghanaians have made ourselves so easy for the political parties that they don't really care whether they are going to release the manifesto a minute before the election or not, because they know it does not really matter. I want to slightly disagree with my brother when he says people vote along ethnic and political party levels. I don't disagree with that. I want to go one level deeper.
No.
All these reasons why people vote is because of economic reasons. The people calculate that if Mr. A is there, I am likely to have access to resources and power. So if it is based on political party or ethnicity or religious inclination, I think at the very bottom of it, if I were, as a Roman Catholic, if I'm to find a Roman Catholic there, it's not necessarily because he's going to be saying Hail Mary every morning. It's probably because when I arrive there with my rosary on my finger, that he will identify me and probably do something that will favor me as against somebody who is not. So while we are busy vilifying political parties and we are busy vilifying ethnic considerations, let us go to the very bottom of the matter. There is a confession that I would finally make. And in 1992, when I had to vote, then President Liman was running. Yeah. And of course, Flight Lieutenant Jerry John Rawlings, and I think Professor Dubois, if my memory serves me right. I was vociferously in favor of one particular candidate. But when I got into the booth, my conviction shook. A minute before I got into the booth in the Kwafu Hall, everybody, even including myself, I was sure who I was going to vote for. Wow. But I'm confessing now that when I got in there, the real Ghanaian took over me. Are you going to go along principles, or are you going to go along ethnic?
The real Ghanaian took over you. That's a profound statement.
These are the issues that underlie. We understand the theories, the policies, the manifestos, but at the end of the day, the bottom line is, what is my access to power and what power gives me?
Okay.
This is what influences the Ghanaian.
Okay.
I dare say.
I want to say a very big thank you to you. Actually, I ended this 7:59. Good time to end. Yes.
Oh,
1 hour is up. Yes, I want to. You want to make a quick comment?
Oh no. I needed to reiterate the point that in the elements that influence political decision making for the electorate, ethnicity is huge. Political party affiliation is huge. Social association is very huge. Yeah. And I will agree with him that all these associations and networking are underpinned by the promise of a good fortune. Sure. So I think that they think that if this person is of my ethnic extraction and I vote for him, he will better our lot.
All right then. Thank you.
So that's just to put it in a perspective.
All right then. Founder Youth Development Network, Kasisi Ricky Prepa, thank you very much for joining us this morning. Also, Mr. Samuel Atta Mensah, CEO, City FM, good morning to you, and thank you so much for joining us to the discussion.